The topic is Brown versus the Board of Education and segregation in public education in the South. And of course, the guests are Ms. LWynn and Dr. LBaldwin. Dr. Baldwin, before we head our first commercial break, we promised that we would give you an opportunity as an historian involved in a number of issues dealing with social aspects to talk about segregation in the South during that period. And then Ms. Wynn will talk about some other things.
Speak on an autobiographical level. I mentioned growing up in Wilcox County, Alabama, which was one of the black belt counties, and I was really in elementary school when the Brown case was decided. And I remember quite well how the schools were rigidly segregated, and I also remember the high levels of defiance and resistance that came from the white South when this decision was made. White Southerners felt really attacked, under attack from the North. There had long been this extreme neurotic sensitivity to interference from outsiders. So when the case was handed down in 1954, there was a lot of defiance and resistance in the South. We at that time, I was about 5th grade, so we really didn't know much of what was going on at that time. I later learned as I moved into junior high and high school what this was all about. But segregation, the system was very segregated, not only in the schools, but you saw churches, and that was one thing that was always amazing to me, that you had segregation in churches. But the educational system was a segregated educational system. We received inferior facilities. Books were handed down from white schools to black schools. Our equipment was not as good. We had good educators, interestingly enough, but it was a rigidly segregated system, and a Brown v. Board of Education actually challenged that, and in response, of course, the black community was quite thankful, and quite, it was celebrated in the black community. But you got high levels of defiance and resistance in the white community.
You know, Ms. Webb, one of the things that we'd like to talk about, as we indicated, public education in the South, is to sort of examine some of those public educational institutions in the South, African-American educational institutions in the South. And let's have you to do that.
Okay, well, let me focus on Nashville, since that's what I know best, since I'm a native of Nashville. Back near the end of the 19th century, African Americans in Nashville challenged the status quo of not being able to attain a high school education. And there was a woman who wanted her son to attend public high school, and for blacks there was no such thing. So she protested to the Board of Education to have her son attend Meg's, well, to attend Hume Fogg. And there was, of course, resistance met, and the Board of Education decided that they would take Meg School, which was founded in about 1883, and turn it into a high school. So you were still operating within a status quo of still being separate. And so Meg's became the first high school in Nashville for African Americans. Later on, the board decided to close Meg's as a high school and transfer its high school department to Pearl High School, which is a school that most African Americans in Nashville can identify from my generation back. It was the school to attend. And you know, people here in Nashville still hold very close and dear ties to Pearl High School. As a matter of fact, a couple of years back, Martin Luther King, the name was changed back to Martin Luther King at Pearl High School. So you can see the endurance of that school within the psyche of the African American community in Nashville. You know, during the years that I attended Pearl, which was after Brown versus Board, and it was still segregated, I'm not so sure that we really realized that we were receiving an inferior education. Pearl High School had a national reputation. It ranked with Dunbar in Washington. Many of the teachers at Pearl had master's degrees and above, and they instilled in their students you know, that we were somebody way before Jesse Jackson coined the phrase, I am somebody. And we were expected to go on and to excel in whatever endeavors we decided to enter. There was never a doubt among, you know, most of the students that I knew that, you know, after high school, you were going to college. You know, and when I look at the community in which Pearl was located, you had a elementary school, Head School. So, you know, students there could receive their elementary education at Head. They could receive their high school education at Pearl High School. And right up the street was Fisk University. So you could receive all of your education really within, you know, one area. Again, I'm not so sure that we really realized that we were receiving, quote, an inferior education. As a matter of fact, I often tell my students today that under the segregated system of education, I received a better education than they are receiving under the so-called desegregated system of education. And I think the difference was you had dedicated teachers. I'm not saying that teachers today are not dedicated, but there, you know, there is a difference. Even in the maturity level of students who come out and enter the college, the collegiate ranks.
Very good. Okay, Dr. Baldwin, is that the same impression that you get? I'd like to go and finish this segment off by...
I agree wholeheartedly. And speaking about the facilities we had, naturally we didn't have the best, but I pointed to the educators we had. Teachers were very interested in students. They spent a lot of time with students. Parents were involved. Your church was involved. So we got very good education. There was no question about it. We had good teachers, well-trained teachers, but a lot of times the facilities, we didn't have the highest grade of facilities and textbooks and that kind of thing. But we were able to get a great education despite that.
Okay, and of course I think one of the things that we'd like to point out here is that Brown also indicated that there should be a greater disperse of financial resources between the two institutions, and of course we're going to talk about that later on. But I do think that the information that the two of you are giving us now is the kind of information that we'd like to have to simply give the impact that this great decision rendered in 1954 had upon general American society as well as upon educational institutions. And we're getting ready for our second commercial break, after which we'll come back and we'll give you an opportunity to deal specifically, Dr. Baldwin, with higher education, because that too is a very, very important part. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. The topic is Brown versus